Alright everyone, I have primered this again. Wife tells me, I've gone over this thing like 6 times since I stripped that paint. I shouldn't have been lazy. I should have just put it in some Castro Super Clean and let it just eat the paint off of it instead of just doing alcohol. Because the alcohol did affect the underlying base coat. Alright? So that's why I'm having to work this so much to get it the way I want it. And stripping to bare plastic, I wouldn't have had to do that. But wife tells me the hood is done. She doesn't really see any more imperfections in it. She's got better eyes than me, that's why I'm trusting her. I'm putting this under the camera test. If it looks done under this camera at this magnification, it's done. I'm going to review this video before I do anything else with that hood. Alright? So the hood is probably done. The body, she tells me right there, is still bad. I don't feel it. I don't see it. I'm going to get out the optivisors and take a look. But the rest of it appears to be perfectly smooth. Now, it's sat for a day. I haven't touched this for a day or two, so I'm going to have to dust it before I paint it. Okay? And there's one other part that gets the same color coat. And here's the back bumper. I cleaned this with alcohol before I primed it, and guess what? It's got dust specks. And when I said I cleaned it with alcohol before I primed it, I cleaned it within minutes of priming it. And I still got dust specks. Okay? Letting the spray booth run, blowing it off first, all sorts of stuff. Just didn't seem to matter for this one. Okay? So I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to fix these specs real quick, and then I'm going to give them another coat of primer. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm touching up the colors on some of these parts. I did a look comparing them to the body, and I didn't like the color contrast. So I'm doing a very light pass with flat black. The underlying base coat is German gray. German gray is great for engine parts, but it doesn't seem to be too good for suspension parts. I don't like the coloration of it. I think suspension parts should be a bit darker. So I'm not doing a heavy coat here. I'm just doing a very light pass. And for some parts, it's heavier in some spots than others. Okay? Because I just want to darken it. I don't want to really repaint everything. That's not my goal. Again, my goal here is to just darken them in certain areas and not necessarily completely repaint, because the flat black by itself won't look great. I don't think so. I think flat black will be a little too much. Alright? So a part like this suspension part right here, the inner A-frame is getting hit a little heavier with the black. Then say the parts trailing off and the tie rods are getting hit with. Because I'm looking for a color variation on this, not necessarily coverage, if that makes sense. Okay, I want it to be a slightly different color than the rest of the car, because the car body and the suspension are going to get treated differently over time. The suspension has some movement to it, the car body does not. So I do want this to be somewhat colored the same as a car body, but not 100%. So, hence, it would help if I'd use the right hand to put that in its holder with. Hence, starting with a slightly different color. And again, I'm just trying to darken a little bit. I'm not trying to change it a whole heck of a lot. So there's not much color in this cup. Okay? Oh boy. That's what I get for trying to work with a parts tree full of parts and using the wrong hand to replace things with. Trying to reach across them instead of around them. Alright? But anyhow, you guys get the idea what I'm attempting here. I'm not really attempting to paint them up completely. That's not my goal. Again, if you get on your hands and knees and crawl and look under a car, yeah. not the cleanest place in the world. That's why I do not like working on cars. I did it all through college. I had a 1970 Chevy Nova. No, 1972 Chevy Nova. I had a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle. And I had a 1978 Alfa Romeo Sprint Veloce. Okay? And between those three cars, I did a lot of engine repair work. Because, one, that Alfa Romeo, you were not taking that to a shop. You took it to a shop and they'd look at it funny. Italian car, and they had no idea what to do with the thing. So I got some really funny looks when I'd show up with that thing. The Volkswagen Bug, mechanic would cost more than it would cost to replace the car. So I tended to just do my own work on it, simply because I pretty much didn't know what I was doing with cars by the time I got that Bug. We bought it in a garage sale for $100. Well, actually, I bought two of them in a garage sale for $200. Their engines were in a box. Okay? We took them home, pulled the engines out of the box, rebuilt, got one running, and I had a Volkswagen Bug running within, 24 hours of buying it at a garage sale. We drove it back to get the title, and the guy was freaked. He's like, if I'd known you could have gotten one driving in that short a period of time, I'd have kept them and fixed them myself. Well, the point is you didn't, and I did. So I got a Volkswagen Bug out of it. This is the part I don't like. I'm wasting off the extra paint. I mismanaged my paint. You know, I put paint in there for coverage, not for colorage, which is a difference. So I'm wasting off the paint. But that's okay. That's neither here nor there. Anyhow, that Alfa Romeo is what taught me car repair in a major way. Because, again, no one even knew how to work on the thing, let alone what it was when you drive into their shop. It sure was a fun car to drive, I will say that. It was not a convertible, in case some of you are wondering. That Alfa Romeo was not a convertible, it was a two-door coupe. A small little engine in it that was hyperactive. I've always had sports cars all my life, from cheap ones to nice, expensive ones. I don't know why, I just like them. And the funny part is, now I drive a truck the most. Yeah, well, today's world, the way it is, can make people have envy of other people's possessions. And when they see someone has something nicer than them, they do something to make it so it's not nicer than what they have. I've encountered that too often. But anyhow, enough ranting. I'm going to switch colors and do some other painting here. What I'm working on next is getting the disc brakes shiny. Seems kind of funny, but if you think about it, disc brakes in cars have a lot of wear on them. And when you got a lot of wear, that means you are getting polishing. So they're polished up fairly well. Go look at one. If you look at a car with good disc brakes that's been used a lot, those disc brakes have no they're mirror-like. Let me just say it that way. They're very mirror-like when they've been used very well. Okay? They also have grooves in them, so they're not 100% mirror-like, but they're very shiny and very reflective. Drum brakes, you can't see that on the outside. Drum brakes are all rusty. So I'm going to make my disc brakes very shiny. And you guys see what I got. The all-clad chrome. That's why they're gloss blacked and so flat back. Now the outer edge of the disc tend to be rusty. So when I'm done chroming these, I'm going to clear coat them and I'm going to rust them. Okay? That is my goal. It's clear coat, then to rust. Alright, I'm not going to use a dropper bottle on this one. I'm just going to drop a few drops straight into the cup. because this does not need to be mixed. Thinned. Alclad paints come pre-thinned. They're lacquer paints too, which means you better have a good base color down. I mean a primer coat down. If you don't have a primer coat down, you're going to be in trouble with them. Alright? And if you've prepared your surface correctly for Alclad paints, you don't use much of them at all. I don't need to use a whole lot of this stuff on here. I don't want it real heavy. About like that. You're watching me paint them. I am not taking a lot of time to paint these discs. I'll make sure this one's on camera. So these Alclad paints are a lot about surface prep. Getting your surface prepared right. And once it's prepared, you don't use a lot of them. Good primer coat is the key to not using a lot of the Alclad paint. I mean, I put 2 drops in there and that's it. And look at that. That's what I want those discs to look like. Nice and shiny. Okay? I tried to scratch a groove surface into them. And, well, that didn't work out. The primer I used covered it right up. Filled in the little scratches I did. I know, that's the job of the primer. What was I thinking, right? But hey, I figured out how to do it later. I'm going to break that knife blade using that way. I figured out what I'm going to do later. You're going to see it because it's the next step on those disc pads. Well, yeah, it is the next step. Once that step's done, then I'm going to paint the rust ring around the outside. Then I am going to once that rust ring is painted, then I'm going to paint the brake calipers themselves. Because the brake calipers themselves should be red to match the car. So there's still 3 more steps to finishing up those brake calipers. But once those get finished up, they'll look good. They'll look just like what you want them to look like on a car. Alright? So, having said all that, I'm done with Airbrush for the day. So I'm cleaning her out. Ooh, I did not get that very clean on the inside. The Alclad paint was just floating on the surface of that cleaner. Some of you have asked me how I clean my Airbrush. This is what I do. I run my paint through it. When the paint is done, this is what I do when I'm done painting. I run thinner through the Airbrush. Okay? Once I'm done running thinner through the Airbrush, I'll put a little bit more thinner in there and take a piece of paper towel and run it through the color cup to clean the color cup out. Then, while it's running, I'll pull the trigger down, pull it back, and put this over the top. That bubbles the rest of the paint that's in the bottom back up into the thinner. And then I'll clean it out. Then I run one more dose of thinner through there to make sure it's clear. Then I use some Airbrush cleaner. Creatix makes some. Someone gave me a bottle of environmentally safe Airbrush cleaner. This stuff. I'm using it up right now because, well, I really don't like it. To be honest with you, I like this better. This is readily available. Sure, it's $6, $7, but that's worth keeping your airbrush in good working shape, in my opinion, and that's why I use it. Well, anyhow, I'm going to stop for a minute. I need to clean up. Then I'm going to put the primer coat on the body one more time. Here we have Thunderpaws on his first real experience with the South American catnip. I mean, he had it when he was a kitten, but I never got any out when he was an adult. Tomo loves this stuff. And when he was a kitten, Thunderpaws ran from this stuff. But now, I think we got an addict forming. What do you think, Nellie? Yeah? That's not a bad thing.
funny.
He is funny. He's rubbing in it. He's drooling on it. I don't think he knows what to think of this stuff. What you hear in the background is Tomo has a stash in another room because I can't keep the two of them together. Because they'll fight over it, so I'll have to separate them. And Tomo understands what I've got, so he comes running, and it's easy to move him around. Okay, I think Thunder's done. Are you done, Mr. Thundercat? Oh, you figured out Tomo has some in another room. This should be interesting. Yeah, he's got that little hunter stance going. I put the catnip on cardboard because these two tend to scratch and claw while they're having their catnip. Oh, that's not a happy response, Mr. Tomo. Ooh, we're going to have an actual fight here in a minute, I think. Because Thunder popped Tomo pretty good. Should I stop him?
Yeah.
Yep. They stopped themselves. Of course, Tomo solved the problem and just came over to Thunder's stash. Tomo's not a fighter. He's like, if there's two, you can have mine and I'll go get yours. You're the fighter. You're the trouble. All right, everyone, I'm going to end this clip here.